Namaste. So, from this video onwards, we are going to start with the series of Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. So, in this video, we are going to look into the overview of the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. How many sections are there? How many chapters are there? What actually the chapter will be dealing with and all, right? So, Negotiable Instruments Act has been passed in 1881 with 137 sections which are included in 16 chapters. So in 1989 they have again amended and included 17th chapter comprising of 138 to 142 sections which exclusively deal with the dishonour of checks. In our normal conversational language we call it as check bounce. Right? In 2002 again an amendment has been made through which 143 to 147 sections have been inserted into the same 17th chapter. And then in last one till now the last amendment is 2018. Through that 148th section has been inserted into the 17th chapter. So as of now we have 17 chapters comprising of 148 sections in the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881. Right? So, when we look into each and every chapter, chapter 1 deals with the definitions. So chapter 2 deals with the meaning and characteristics of the three negotiable instruments, that is promissory note, bill of exchange and check. Right? Then next chapter 3 deals with parties to the NI. So that means who are the parties to the negotiable instrument? That is drawer, drawee, maker, payee, endorser, endorsee and all. Next is chapter 4, that is endorsement. So endorsement is one of the methods of negotiations. So that means whenever the instrument is being transferred, that will be transferred through the method of endorsement. So we will be looking into what is meant by endorsement, what are the kinds of endorsement and all. Next is chapter 5 completely deals about presentment. So when the instrument has to be presented, in what way it should be presented, what happens if not presented and all. Next is chapter 6 deals with the payment and interest. So how a payment will be considered as valid, what are the conditions to it, and what is the rate of interest that is prescribed by the Negotiable Instruments Act. We will be looking into that. So next is chapter 7 deals with the discharge from liability. We have seen the parties and their liability. Then there should be some kind of cap or a limit to the liability of each and every party. So when they get discharged, we will be discussing in chapter 7. Next is chapter 8, all about dishonours. So when an instrument will be considered as dishonoured. Dishonoured here means not paying the amount. Next is chapter 9, all about noting and protest. When dishonour happens, then there should be some kind of evidentiary proof to be created with respect to the dishonour, and that is nothing but noting and protest. Then next is chapter 10 deals about the reasonable time period within which the payment has to be made and all. Next is chapter 11, all about acceptance. So the concept of acceptance will be exclusively in the bill of exchange. So we will be dealing with the acceptance. Next is chapter 12 mentions about compensation, and chapter 13 mentions about presumptions. Presumptions are something which actually are the same as like evidence law. So here we will be looking into the presumptions as to the negotiable instrument. Next is chapter 14 discusses about the crossed checks. There will be uncrossed check and a crossed check, as we all know. So what is meant by crossing, why it is important, what are the different kinds of crossing and all we will be discussing. Chapter 15 deals with bills and sets, that is when bill of exchange has been made in the copies, then what are the consequences. Next is chapter 16 deals about foreign instruments. So there are two kinds of instruments like inland instruments and foreign instruments. What if a foreign instrument has been brought to India for payment, then what are the consequences? And then last one is chapter 17, that is all about dishonour of check due to insufficiency of funds, that is nothing but check bounce. So what are the procedures, how the case has to be filed, where it should be filed, who should file, right? And what is the punishment prescribed by the provisions and all we will be discussing in the chapter 17. So this is the overall view of the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 comprising of 17 chapters and 148 sections. Hope it is clear for all of you. Namaste.